Welcome back to Neighbors in the Network. I'm James Pinedo, a co-host here, joined by my very special co-host, Jane McEnany. Jane, should I say happy or maybe sad Ash Wednesday?
Uh, Hoping for a good Lenten season, I suppose. Yeah. Listeners, this is just, we're recording on Ash Wednesday. I am Catholic. This is not a avant-garde makeup trend, just in case you're worried about my mental health.
Well, is it it's a season of penance, right? So should I say happy Ash Wednesday or should we just be like sad, what's the right way to recognize that?
Great question, James. I've always heard conflicting things on that you're not supposed
Yeah.
to say Happy Ash Wednesday. I do. I think penance is a part of the resurrection, and we celebrate that. So I'm I'm perfectly happy for you to wish me a happy Ash Wednesday.
Well, good. Happy Ash Wednesday. We had a great guest today, and I'm so excited to get to the conversation. Wendy Damron, the president and CEO of Palmetto Promise Institute, joined us. Wendy started her career at Ernst& Young LLP as a CPA in both the Detroit and Baltimore offices, where she practiced in all aspects of tax. Through this experience, she came to understand the complexity of tax law and the burden it places on businesses large and small. Later, Wendy became a self employed tax professional. In this capacity, she gained more experience and insight into the tax issues that middle class individuals face and how tax policy can influence individual decision making. Prior to leading Palmetto, Wendy also served as the state director for the Convention of States, also known as Citizens for Self Governance, a nationwide nonprofit organization dedicated to encouraging citizens to actively engage with their state legislatures to make an impact on policy. And wow, Jane, this conversation blew me away. Everything that Wendy's been doing at Palmetto is just amazing. What stood out for you?
Well, I mean, certainly her business acumen, I think, comes through. And it's so fascinating how varied the backgrounds are of some of the SPN network CEOs, and I think it just really adds a lot of color and different approaches to their organization's activities. So it was cool to see that. But the biggest thing that strikes me in this conversation is Wendy's humility.
Mm.
I've been so lucky to get to partner really closely with the Palmetto team the last couple of months as they gear up for this fight that you'll get to hear more about in the episode. And I just her efforts are nothing short of heroic. I mean, she's truly a servant leader for her state and all these communities that are she's trying to help. Um, it's just so inspirational to me. We're so lucky to get to learn from her, and all South Carolina families, whether they realize it or not, are lucky to have Palmetto in the state.
Amen. And Jane, you did a wonderful job of really getting to the heart of the story. So, should we get to it?
Yeah, let's dig in.
Wendy, thanks again for chatting with Jane and me today.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm just so excited to be here.
We're excited to chat with you too. It seems to be a lot of things happening, an exciting time in South Carolina. You mentioned previously that there's a significant shift in the ideological balance in the state Senate in the wake of the 2024 election that will provide fertile soil for the Palmetto Freedom Agenda. So tell me, what is the Palmetto Freedom Agenda, and what have you got what are you excited about most?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So the Palmetto Freedom Agenda is, well, every session we put out a list of our top issues that we want to see move in this next session. And so this year we have 20 issues, and we put out just a small handout for each legislator that has a QR code that sends them to a web page on that subject that has everything that we've written, links to everything we've written on it, statistics, videos, everything in one spot, because we want to make it as easy as possible. We know the legislators are bombarded with so much information, and we want to make it as easy as possible for them. And we want them to see us as a trusted source on all of these very important issues. So legislation session has just started, and right off the bat, there are a lot of things that we've been working on that are being debated right now. I'll just name a couple of things. Tort reform, that's very contentious, but it needs to get done. Tax reform here. We have the highest personal income tax rate in the whole Southeast. So obviously, for many reasons, we need to get that down. Energy reform, another thing that's just, not that, I guess exciting for most people, but something that really also needs to get done for the good of the state. And so those three things. But I think the most important thing that's happening, the thing I'm most passionate about for many reasons, is education reform, education choice in South Carolina. That is moving, and thank God it is, because we need that so badly here. And I guess just to go back and address your question about the changes that have happened in South Carolina. South Carolina is one of those states where a lot of people are moving in. And a lot of those people are moving here for a reason. It's to get away, like I did, to get away from my blue state tyranny. And they come here and they want to see the legislature live up to the hope and the promise, Palmetto Promise, the hope and the promise that they have. And so they're electing more conservative. And when I mean conservative, sometimes conservative in South Carolina can mean slow to change. And when I say conservative now is meaning people who actually want to see free market solutions happen in the state, and not just say, but we've always done it this way, so it's fine. So that's what I mean. We have a supermajority in the House, we have a supermajority in the Senate, and because there were 3 Republicans that voted against the will of their constituents on a bill that we actually had nothing to do with, but it was heartbeat bill here in South Carolina. There were 3 female senators, Republican senators. They all were primaried and taken out and been replaced with probably senators who were even more conservative. So we gained seats, and then we also, the seats that we capped, some of them became more conservative. So we're really excited. We feel that we have the most potential to get the most, I don't want to say radical things done, but to make the most difference, the most change that we can now in this session. So we're really, really excited about that going forward.
Wendy, let's talk about one of the biggest issues that Palmetto is working on right now. Don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think it is the biggest issue you're working on with the greatest chance for impact for South Carolina families, and that is the resurrection of school choice in your state. For listeners who might not know, in 2023, South Carolina enacted the Education Scholarship Trust Fund, which is a limited education savings account that allows for flexibility and for families to determine where and how their children are educated. We know that in September, the state Supreme Court issued a ruling, the timing of which was just catastrophic, pulling the rug out from under the low-income families who were then qualified to receive these scholarship dollars. Kind of walk us through, what happened in September when that ruling came down, and tell us what you and the Palmetto team have done since then to get us to where we are now with an active legislative session where momentum is just really looking good.
Yeah, so, it was so devastating. Palmetto's been working for at least 10 years to get the concept of ESAs into, even just to introduce it to the legislature. And then we finally, we were just so happy. We got our first bill passed, and we did a lot of work, implementation work. So, we sent out 100,000 mailers to low-income families. We did radio ads, social media ads. We partnered with community centers and churches to register families. And on the other side, we were helping to get schools registered and get schools involved, because, whenever it's the first year of a program, schools are going to be a little nervous about, how is this going to work? Is the state going to tell me what I need to teach? Am I going to actually get paid? So we did all this work. We got all these families signed up. We got all these schools on board. It was all going great. And then 6 weeks into the school year, they dropped this decision. And, I can't help but wonder why they waited so long. We filed an amicus brief, and that all of those hearings were the first week of March. So they waited a full 6 months to release their decision. And the Chief Justice at the time, who has retired, he was very, very anti-school choice. I can't help but wonder if it was done to cause maximum damage to the school choice movement in South Carolina. So,
I mean, we were talking all summer saying, I felt like I was stalking you and Oren in June and July, like, hey, when's the decision coming? When's the decision coming? And you were, you had 2 press releases ready to go for either outcome. And it's like they waited until the school year started. I mean, it's not crazy to question the timing of that.
Yes. And, every Wednesday we thought today's going to be the day, right? And then the first payments, first funding from the state went into the account, and we thought, okay, that's got to happen now. They're not going to let the kids start school, And then, as the school year started to go on, as the weeks went on, we thought, well, okay, there's no way they're going to call it unconstitutional, because that would just be way too cruel to do to these families. And then, so when this came down, we were stunned. And we immediately were hearing from distraught families and distraught schools, because the families had already seen a change in their child after 6 weeks. Anyone who has children understands that, after 6 weeks, your child is in a new school. They're getting to know their teacher. They're getting settled into the routine. They've made friends, and then from the school's point of view, these children had already become like their family. And they didn't want to tell them, sorry, you can't go here anymore. It was heartbreaking on their end. And they said, we want to do everything we can to keep these kids here, but, we're a small school, and we took, a lot of these students, and we just can't afford to keep them, or we hired a teacher, and so immediately we thought, well, we can't just sit back and say, this is just collateral damage in the war for school choice. We've got to step in and try to do something. So the first thing that we did pretty much the next day or the day after is we were able to find families that were in the program from basically all over the state, which was important to us because we wanted legislators to see families from their district speaking out. And we had a camera crew go, and we got so many of their stories on video, and the stories are heartbreaking and so heartfelt about what this meant to their child. And initially our goal was, let's see if we can get the legislature to come back for a special session and fix this right now so that these families don't have to leave school. And so we didn't have a C4 before, so we had to hurry up and make a C4 really quick because we wanted to put the videos out with a petition. So we created a C4 called Palmetto Promise Impact so that we could get this flowing. And unfortunately, the legislators did not see the wisdom in doing that because, it was campaign season and they didn't want to. I think it would have been great to say, I'm pausing my campaign for a few days so we can go back and get this fixed for these kids. So they did not do that, but they did put out a statement that said, this is going to be our top priority when we come back to session in January. So I thought, okay, so where does that leave these families right now? Mm-hmm. And where does that leave these schools right now? Mm-hmm. And not only did I feel terrible for the families, not only did I feel terrible for the schools, I was very, very concerned that once we got school choice back in place in South Carolina, and for many reasons which we can talk about, I knew we would, I'm afraid that this was going to do long-term damage to the whole movement because if I'm a school, coming at this from a business perspective, I'm a businesswoman. If I'm a school and I hired teachers and I added, space to classrooms and all of this, and then I got burned, I might be inclined to say next time, you know what? I can only take kids that I know can pay from now on. I can't be involved in this. And if I'm a family who had to pull my child out partway into the year, I probably will be afraid to try again because I don't want to put them through that again. That's devastating. So I started to think, if we don't step up and try to do something right now, we are going to be causing long-term damage to the school choice movement in South Carolina. It could take years to come back from it. And I don't know. I think that maybe even the school choice advocates in other states are watching what we're doing and saying, wow,
they are.
They could pull the rug out from under our families after school started, so I felt like we needed to try to do something. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do anything about it, but thankfully we were able to keep the kids in school while we are now going back and fighting the fight in the legislature to get it back in place.
I mean, and that's via a rescue fund that you established. Tell us how that's working, how you raise money. I mean, I recall talking to you, and I remember the exact date because it was Friday the 13th, and I was like, "Oh, don't love this." But we spoke. I think fewer than 36 hours after the court ruling came down, and you were just like running through this roster of all these people, philanthropists from around the country that you've been talking to, the Catholic Diocese in Charleston. Like, you had this short-term strategy to plug the hole and try and keep credibility with these families and these schools intact, restore trust that had understandably been jeopardized, in addition to building out this longer term restoration strategy. I mean, how is the rescue fund? I mean, I think it's important for folks to know, like, what you've done there is just incredible. So please tell us about that.
Well, yeah, thank you. I had no idea, Palmetto Promise is very small. So when I realized I had to raise about $3 million to keep the kids in school, I mean, that's like 4 times my actual Palmetto Promise budget. Plus I had to raise my Palmetto Promise budget. That was a little daunting. But I thought, let me try and see if I can do that. I mean, I hoped, and I was right, that there were people, across the country that cared about school choice that wouldn't necessarily give money to Palmetto Promise, but they would give money for this. It was a real tangible thing with real family stories behind it. And so I just basically, listen, I am a networker. Everywhere I go, I'm changing cards with people. And, I then went back into my, Rolodex, which nobody has a Rolodex anymore, but I called everybody that I'd ever met that was in the school choice movement and just said, here's what I'm doing. Do you know anybody who might be interested in participating and helping and stepping in and just being a hero for these families? And I was, I started having conversations that, nobody gives you, $500,000 at one phone call, someone that they've never heard of. So these conversations went on for weeks, and I had no idea whether any of it was going to go anywhere. And thankfully, I was connected with an amazing philanthropist, Jeff Yass, in Pennsylvania, and he got me started with a $900,000 donation. And I was just amazed. that he would do that. And once he gave me that, then, that really, that legitimized what I was doing in the minds of others, and so I ended up, to this point, I've raised about 2.5 million. I mentioned I need 3 million, so I'm still out there working on that other $500,000 to get the kids all the way through the rest of the year.
Where can people go, Wendy, if they want to contribute to the rescue fund? Is there a resource, a place we can point them to?
Absolutely. So if you just go to palmettopromise.org, if you go to our donate page, if you wanted to donate through your credit card, there's a little box you can check that's for ESA Families Rescue Fund. And every dollar that we're getting is going straight to the schools. We're not keeping any of the money for ourselves. I'm actually kind of losing money on this deal, but that's okay. It's just so important to me because, like you mentioned, we worked so hard with these families and schools, and we need them to trust us next year when we go back, and we try to get them to sign up again next year, and we get the schools to sign up again next year to participate. I mean, if you can have all the scholarships in the world available, if you don't have providers willing to step out and participate, then you don't have a program. So through this rescue fund, we have been able to establish even more of a relationship and a trust with the families and the schools, so that next time when we go back, it's going to be that much easier and that much better and we're keeping them in place. We're keeping them in the program, which was
you're not only right. I mean, you're not only doing the right thing for the right thing's sake, but this is also strategic. I mean, you're preemptively easing implementation for not if, but when the state of South Carolina reenacts a program that will hopefully be universal. And because of your really, I mean, you put out a memo to the movement within days of this all happening. You're establishing this rescue fund, and you communicated to all these national partners and local partners, here's the short-term strategy, here's the long-term strategy, here are the various vehicles that we could push that could address the Supreme Court's claims of unconstitutionality. And I would really just love for other network partners to look at that as an example of a state-based think tank asserting itself rightfully to say, look, here's what we're doing. Here's how you can help us. We need help. We want your help. We're grateful for your help. But this is all hands on deck. And it's exciting to see that you were right, that what local interests were calling for was a resurrection of an ESA. SPN is agnostic on a vehicle, whether it's an education savings account, a voucher, tax credit scholarship, a refundable tax credit. Like, we just care about choice. But you knew, being in the state, that was the best play. And you had pushback from national partners on that. But, because you got out in front of it and asserted yourself, now everyone's kind of falling in line and seeing, yep, this is the move. And now we're going universal. So I love to see that. And I think it's great that you did that. And I think it's proved in multiple ways to be successful as a strategy.
Absolutely. I mean, we appreciate having national partners. I mean, they have resources that we don't have, but what the state groups bring is that we have the experience and the relationships and the insights that maybe they don't have. And so I just really wanted, I mean, maybe it's a fantasy, but I just really wanted to get all these groups on the same page, because I feel like, we have to all be pulling in the same direction to get this done, and it's urgent. So we are for every kind of school choice in South Carolina. We're for tax credit scholarship. We're for everything. We want to be like Florida. We want to have it all. But we did not want to abandon the ESA program because it was already in place. It was already working. We already have families in it. We already have schools in it. And we believed that we could get it done again. And because of the change in the court that has happened, we believe that it would be found constitutional in the next time. Now that will be tested hopefully soon, but we do believe that it will stand up to the judicial scrutiny. So we just thought, let's not abandon ESA. We don't need to do that, and then we're happy to go back in and do a tax credit too, and do all kinds of things. So we put that memo out, and we had a couple of coalition sort of meetings with many different people in the groups, and it was good for us to be able to get our perspective out there. Maybe we didn't all agree on what we were supposed to do going forward. But it was great. And I think I wanted them all to hear our insights, because we are the ones that are on the ground every day in the state legislature. Yep. And we're the ones with the relationships. And, I have to give a shout out to Alan Weaver, she is our former president. Probably a lot of people on this call know who she is, or listening to this know who she is, because she was in my seat before me, and she is now our state superintendent. And it is unbelievably helpful to have a like-minded person running the Department of Education when you have an ESA program and probably other types of school choice, because I think we've seen in some other states where you pass a great law but then you have the deep state of your state actively working against your law, your choice program, and that has been the opposite case for us here in South Carolina. So we kind of have a perfect storm of what we need to get done, and now we have a new court. So just for some perspective on the court, the Chief Justice, who was anti-school choice, he has retired. So the justice that wrote the dissenting opinion in our favor is now the Chief Justice.
Wow.
The new judge that was placed on the court is also, we believe, pro-school choice. And a little sort of a fluke that happened last time is we thought we could win 3-2, but one of the pro-school choice justices recused himself because he has some connection with a private school or something like that. So he was replaced by the anti-Chief Justice with an anti-justice just for this case. So we lost 3-2. If that same judge recuses himself again, he'll be replaced by the new Chief Justice, who's pro, hopefully with a pro. So we think we could win 3-2 or maybe even 4-1 in the new case. So we are excited for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, not just these membership changes of the court being more favorable, but also the version of the bill that the House passed with wide margins last week that is a universal resurrection of the Education Scholarship Trust Fund, so coming back bigger and better than the original 2023 program. I mean, your team has described this as Easter eggs to me, that in the dissent, there was kind of a path written for how we could do this and do it constitutionally. And the House version of the bill does just that. So I think it's just another thing to point to, like, you guys know the state and the ins and outs. So I think everybody from whatever perspective they're coming from would be, again, just wise to take your lead.
Yeah, and we've been obviously, of course, working closely with leadership there and just saying, we can bring so much perspective to improving the law because we were so involved with implementation. Things like, the first law had a little 2-month application window. We blew that away. We said, we just let people apply until all the slots are filled, taking away the prior public school requirement, because we had families who, maybe the grandma and the aunt and, the cousin, everybody was pitching in to help this child attend a private school because they just weren't thriving in their public school for whatever reason. Even though they fall under that low income limit, they couldn't qualify for the scholarship because they were already in a private school. So they got that out of there. So we were able to bring a perspective after having gone through it one implementation period to things that can improve the bill going forward. So, and then of course our intimate conversations with the schools, they have questions and concerns about testing and things like that we were able to bring to the legislature, just sort of that practical experience. And we were just very happy that they listened to us and they incorporated all those things into the bill. So the big challenge that we have ahead of us is merging the Senate bill and the House bill. So we have some ideas on how that could work. Don't want to give anything away yet, but we have some. We've been thinking about this for a very long time. So we have some ideas on how we might be able to make that work, and we're looking forward to that. And we have families, real families here. Hundreds, thousands that are just waiting on pins and needles about what's going to happen with my child next year, And that's what I think people lose sight of, is that, we're all up here talking about policy and, just sort of, hypotheticals, but really it's these families that are contacting us every day saying, I'm anxious. Is my child going to continue to stay at this school? Are you going to have are you going to be able to pay the school for, the last half of the second semester? B, is the school choice program going to be back in place for next year? So all we can tell them is we're working on it. We promise we're working on it. We're making progress, but these are real families.
And you're bringing them in to testify before lawmakers. I mean, to tell their stories.
Yes, we filled the room. It was great because we had the room filled with, and plus overflow with families, kids, with the stickers, universal school choice now. And then about, a couple rows, you had some of the anti-school choice people in there. But then afterwards, they went to the office of the chairman of the Senate Education Committee. The chairwoman of the House Education Committee came in, and they both spoke and talked to the families and heard their stories one-on-one. And so it's been really great to get real faces, and that's sort of the advantage of where we are now, because before the program kicked in, we could have said, we could have had people say, well, if the program existed, then, this is what could happen. Now we have families saying, my child is participating in this, and this is the change it is making in his life. And, we can't go back, and so please do what you can to help my child stay where they are. It's working for them. So we get to have those real families come and give those real testimonies about what's actually happening right now. And I think that makes a big difference.
Just so critical that lawmakers hear from the families, and amazing that Palmetto is facilitating that happening. Just incredibly important.
It's so hard to do because the time. They'll say, well, we're going to meet on this day a half hour after a session. So you get everybody there at 11 a.m. and then they don't even meet till 3:30, and you got all these families hanging out, but they stay.
And they have jobs and lives, and it's such a commitment. Wendy, you mentioned networking, and I can't help but ask about you shared how Palmetto created a 501c4 to really boost your advocacy impact, especially for this fight, but for fights to come. I'd love to hear how other SPN network CEOs have helped you in thinking through the development of that. I love to call it the network in action. It's just such an opportunity for CEOs in the network to share their experiences and learn from each other. How has that been for you? And what would you recommend to other affiliates that might want to pursue this kind of durable freedom infrastructure in their state?
Oh, it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, I kicked myself because I'm in a peer group, and I didn't say anything to my peer group about this until after I got the $900,000 from Yaz. And then they were like, first of all, so happy for me, so supportive. But then they were all saying, well, did you talk to this person? Did you talk to this person? Do you know this person? And I was like, no. So they're like introducing me to people. And I was just like, why didn't I come to them before? But I guess the reaction I got from some of the national level groups was like, yeah, we don't, because I was like saying, hey, do you want to participate in this rescue fund? Like, it doesn't have to be the Palmetto Promise Rescue Fund. It can be the whole movement rescue fund. I don't care. We just need to get the money, right? And they were like, yeah, we don't really do that. So I guess I just thought, well, I guess I'm kind of on my own here. But when I brought it to the network, it was like, I was amazed. It was so great. And that is just one of the things that I love about the network. It's like, we're not competing with each other. We want to see each other do better, because when another state think tank does better, we can take that to our legislature and see, look what they're doing in North Carolina. Look what they're doing in Georgia, and so everybody was so incredibly generous and supportive of what I was trying to do and connecting me with, new possibilities for donors. And it was wonderful. I'm just a I'm just a huge fan. And there were CEOs in the network that I had never even had a chance to talk to, who weren't even in my peer group, who I, frankly, when I see them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I fangirl because they're like, they're so amazing. And they're calling me and saying, hey, I heard about this. This is great. Have you talked to this person? And I'm just like amazed that they would take the time out of their busy schedule and share a donor of theirs with me. I mean, that's kind of unheard of. Everybody wants to hoard their donors for themselves. And so, yeah, it's been amazing. There's no way I could have gotten to the 2.5 million without the network. 100%.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yes.
Wow. Well, Wendy, that story was amazing. I'm my mind's blown. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. We're getting close to time. So just to sum up, can you tell us a little bit about what your future hopes and goals are there at Palmetto?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, again, where the network comes in. Whenever, we're small. We've always been very small. I just hired my 4th full-time person. So we have 4 full-time employees now. We've always been small. That's always kind of been the culture of Palmetto. When I came in with a vision of growing us. Now I took us from 2 people to 4 people. So there you go. But I get so inspired when we go to the SPN annual meeting and in my peer group, when I see all the things that some of these other state groups are doing, it's just incredible. And I get inspired to come back and say, what more can we be doing in South Carolina? There are so many issues that we want to take on. But, when you're a small group, you can't do everything, right? You have to sort of pick your battles, which is why we have, just our 20 issues. And people are always bringing issues to us and saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? And we think, we're like, yeah, we're totally on board with that. And, maybe we could do a blog post on it, but we can't do a deep dive and be super effective on all the issues that we want to do. So we've got to grow. So I want to grow our C3 side. I want to grow we've got our little teeny tiny C4, I want to grow the C4. I haven't quite mastered the fundraising for the C4 yet. I'm working on that. Been a little distracted with some other fundraising. I want to use that in a way that, like I mentioned here, in a red state, you don't necessarily have to go and just, go in with brass knuckles on people, but there is a way to use your C4 to just nudge, give a nice little nudge, or even to thank those legislators that are standing hard with you. So we're interested in that. And getting involved with the court case, for example, with the school choice bill. We were able to file an amicus brief because we had we have relationships with attorneys that would be willing to do that for us. But I would love to someday have our own litigation arm here in South Carolina because there's so many issues that we, again, can get involved with. So just really want to just make a difference and help us live up to our potential here. There's so much potential. And, when I first started this job, I came from the business world. I'm not from policy world. And it was a little bit shocking to me to go stand in the lobby. The lobby is full of lobbyists. You have the lobbyists for the hospitals. You have the lobbyists for the teachers. You have the lobbyists for the bar association. You have all these lobbyists that are there to talk to the legislators. And I thought, who is here to talk to the legislators about what's just best for all of us in South Carolina, not for a particular special interest or industry? And that's us, right? That's just us. And if our voice isn't there, then the legislators are maybe never hearing that perspective. And so that's why what we're doing is so important. I love South Carolina. I moved here on purpose. I could have lived anywhere in the country. I guess I could have lived anywhere in the world. And I chose Charleston, South Carolina. I love it here. I want to stay here forever. And so I want to make it the absolute best it can be. So, and again, I just get so inspired when I go to the SPN annual meeting about what everybody else is doing. And I just come home and be like, how can we do that with our 4 people, So.
Brilliant. Well, how can our listeners find out more?
Well, you can go to palmettopromise.org. We've got our freedom agenda up there. You can see everything that's going on and what we're advocating for here in South Carolina. And I love to talk. Obviously, you can tell. I love to talk. If anyone wants to just give me a call. I'd love to chat with you and about any issue that we're working on. And any, the school choice movement, is, again, I think the most important thing, because our generation, it's a whole generation of children coming through our schools in South Carolina. Outcomes are frankly not good. To be honest, reading, math, that's not good. And then there's the indoctrination that we see happening as well. People's families' values, the families of South Carolina, our values are conservative. We're Christian conservatives mostly here. And our values are being undermined in the public school. And so if a parent sees that happening, if their child is not thriving in their assigned school, for whether that's academically, socially, values-wise, whatever, they should have the option to find that best fit. And I think only with a universal school choice program where there's true competition injected into the market are you going to see our public schools really, really making changes for the better. Because right now they don't have to. So that's why they're trying so hard to stop it now, because they know once families get a taste of this choice, they're going to demand more and more and more. And they're going to see everyone will see it's a really good thing. So yeah, it's just really exciting time. And I'm just so happy to have a job where I feel like, I'm really making a difference in the lives of real people, real people who otherwise might not have that opportunity, the same opportunity that my own children had to go to the school that was the best fit for them. So it's not fair that my kids could do it because I could afford it and their kids can't.
Wendy, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to see you both.
And thank you all for joining us here on Neighbors in the Network. Thanks for listening to Neighbors in the Network, an offering from the State Policy Network. We hope that this podcast can serve as a place for empathy, understanding, and human connection. Please let us know about your thoughts in the comments section. And thanks again.